Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I have my cup of hot chocolate and I'm going to be talking about my favorite books of 2021. So far to date, today is December 29th, I have read 155 books and I'm going to talk about some of my favorite. To make things easier because of the sheer number of books that I've read, I'm going to split this video into two parts. My favorite fiction books, which is this video, and my favorite nonfiction books. So that's what we're here to talk about, my favorite fiction books of 2021. One quick thing that I'm going to address before the video gets started: how do you have time to read 155 books? Every time I talk about how many books I read, people seem surprised. The first thing I should say is don't compare yourself to other people. If you don't read that much, that's not a bad thing. I'm not better than anyone else for reading this much. The second thing is I don't really know, to be honest. I don't feel like I spend a lot of time reading. I don't feel like I'm a fast reader necessarily. I'm not a slow reader, but I don't speed read and I don't skim books. I read every word on every page. Sometimes I skip the introductions if they're boring, but sometimes I read them. I give them a shot. Last year, I read 178 books. So I'm trending about 20 books behind, or like behind where I was last year. That is only because I moved to a different city, and the city I'm living in now, I actually know people, so I go be social. And corona restrictions are obviously a little lighter this year, at least where I live, so I'm able to go do more things, and there's just more events happening. That being said, basically, I don't really know how I read 155 books. I just read a little bit before bed, and here's where I am. And I'm probably going to squeeze in a couple more between now and the end of the year because I don't have to work between now and the end of the year. But I'm probably going to end up under 160 this year. And unless a real stellar pick comes in between now and the end of the year, I probably have my list of top fiction books. So let's dive in and talk about my favorite books of 2021, favorite fiction books in this video. The first one I'm going to talk about is a manga series, and that is No Matter How I Look at It, It's You Guys' Fault I'm Not Popular by Nico Tanigawa. This year I read volumes 1 through 16. There are a couple more, I believe, that have been published beyond 16. The only reason I didn't read those this year is because I moved from one city to another, so I switched library systems, and that's where I get all my books, is from the library. Contrary to my background, I don't really own a lot of books. And my current library system does not have these books, so I'll have to order them from other libraries, if that makes sense. So I haven't gotten around to finishing up that. I love this series. I have been proselytizing, if I can use that word, about this series to anyone who will listen, including people who do not read manga. This series, in my opinion, is the perfect depiction of a young high school girl who is experiencing normal high school things. It is the perfect representation, in my opinion, of that mixture of hormones going off the chart, of anxiety, of depression, of the fear of missing out. It's a very extreme example. I think a lot of people may not have experienced all the things that happen there, and therefore might not be able to relate to everything, but I feel like anyone who went through a bad time in middle school or high school can relate to many of the situations, or at least some of the situations or feelings that she has. I also have to say it's a very good depiction of maybe the internal growing, like, sexual life of a young girl without being creepy, because I know what everyone's like brain just did. They heard manga, they heard young girl, they heard blossoming sexual life, and they said, red flag, red flag, red flag, I'm not gonna read this, which is very fair. I feel like there are many things in that genre that can become a little iffy. However, this series, in my opinion, it does it incredibly well. I didn't feel like there was anything red flaggy. I loved every minute of this series. I'm excited to finish this series up, and I highly recommend it to anyone who reads manga, is looking for a new manga series to try. Again, that is No Matter How I Look at It, It's You Guys' Fault I'm Not Popular by Nico Tanigawa. This year I read 1 through 16, love them. I will say, at the beginning, they can be very painful to read. Things get better. Things get better, I promise. And when you hit that, I think it was like 9, 10, 11, things start moving and you really get the payoff of what you've read in the first couple volumes. The second one that was one of my top reads of this year was Guards by Terry Pratchett. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I love Terry Pratchett. I love his books. I love his humor style. Every time I go to the library and I don't know what to read, I pick up a Terry Pratchett book and I'm going to be satisfied with it. That being said, if you don't like Terry Pratchett, I completely understand. I think his humor style and his writing style is very personal, as in it has to resonate with you. And if someone doesn't like his writing style or doesn't find his humor funny, I get it, and I can see how you wouldn't. It just works for me. I find it really, really funny, and I love it. So Guards is the first book, I believe, in the Sam Vimes slash City Watch series. So it's kind of the formation of the city guards. I loved it. Loved it. Usually when talking to people about Terry Pratchett, or the books that I read take place in a place called Discworld, which is kind of a continent that's going through space on the back of a great turtle. A lot of people who want to get into the series, I feel like, want a starting point or want a book that's really good to enter the series at. That being, people want to know that because the first book in the series usually isn't considered the strongest, so people want to know where to enter the series. And within the Discworld series, there's a lot of different sub-series, and people want to know which one they should start at because they all kind of connect together. There are plenty of really good maps or graphics on the internet I've seen that kind of tell you where to start. From personal experience, before reading Guards, I really recommended starting with Small Gods. I felt like it was a good sample of the series. Moving forward, I'm definitely going to suggest starting with Guards. I thought it was really funny, one of the funniest in the series. I loved it, I laughed, I enjoyed every minute, I devoured it. Great one. So if you haven't started reading anything by Terry Pratchett in the Discworld series, I really recommend starting with Guards. I liked it. If someone else has a critique and thinks there's a better book to start with, please let me know. I like hearing what other people recommend starting Terry Pratchett with, just for curiosity. For me, like I said in the past, I've recommended Small Gods. I think I recommended it to both of my sisters. One of my sisters, the writing style wasn't for her. The other one, I believe, started with Guards, and she started with Small Gods, and she has since read many books by Terry Pratchett. And I've also recommended Small Gods to another person who really liked it. So yes, Terry Pratchett. Highly recommend. If you haven't read it yet, pick up Guards. You can get it in the little, what do they call them? Like mass paperback copies. Pick it up, $9.99, at least here in the United States, $99 US. And you've got a perfect book. Take it on a plane, have a good laugh, or hate it, and let me know how you feel about it. Let me know if you hate his writing style. I will not be offended. On the train of Terry Pratchett, did not make my list, but would have if I hadn't read Guards, was Hogfather. I actually got the recommendation to read Hogfather from my aunt, who read it for a book club and absolutely hated Terry Pratchett's writing style. She hated his humor. And I thought, well, they read it in their book club, so it must be good enough to read in a book club. And she hated it, but I know that I like the humor style, so I went and got it. So funny. In the Hogfather, Death is filling in the role of the Hogfather, who is Santa Claus analog. Super funny. Another one I devoured. Perfect for the holiday season. If you are looking for a holiday read, I recommend the Hogfather, unless you don't like Terry Pratchett's writing style. I don't know if Hogfather would be a good entry point, but you know what? You really can't go wrong. So pick it up and read it, and if you have no clue what's going on, come back and complain at me later, and we can sort it out. But Hogfather was a close second with the Terry Pratchett. I'm trying to think. That was probably my best fantasy series of the year, or book of the year, was Guards / Hogfather. Close second, Hogfather there. My third favorite book of 2021. And this is more in the sci-fi category, although maybe I have two books. This is a series. I'm kind of cheating here and just talking about a lot. But again, I read 155 books. This year I really did read more nonfiction than fiction though. But I think I had a lot more winners or top picks out of my fiction reads. This is the First Formic War and the Second Formic War series by Aaran Johnston and Orson Scott Card. I have read all of the First Formic War series, of which there are 3: Earth Unaware, Earth Afire, and then Earth Awakens. I have my little cheat sheet here. That is I don't know what you'd call it, first contact sci-fi novel. That is the Formics, so the big bad guys in Ender's Game. Who are they fighting? They are coming to Earth. Kind of the people out in the belt doing mining out there are the first to notice it. They try to alert Earth, but they're unsuccessful. And then obviously the ship shows up and starts attacking China. The ant-like aliens are called Formics, and the first series is Earth's immediate response to this first contact / invasion from the Formics. This is followed by the second Formic War series. So in the first Formic War series, obviously by the fact that we have Ender's Game and by the fact that there is a second Formic War series, at least some humans survive. So after the first Formic War, there is the second Formic War, which is basically that ship that showed up to Earth was kind of an advance wave that was sent to kind of soften up the planet, do a little bio rearranging to make sure it was good for the Formics to live on. The second Formic War series focuses more on the queen, at least. And I should say this right here. I have only read The Swarm, so it's The Swarm, The Hive, and there's a third book that's scheduled to come out. I don't know if it's come out yet, and I really don't know the name, if it has come out yet. So there's The Swarm, which I have read this year, which is included. I have The Hive checked out. I might read it before the end of the year, but I might not. And the third one, which to my knowledge has not come out yet. Second Formic War, there's a ship out there that's coming. We now know they're there, but this is not the advanced ship, and there's a lot more of these ships, so how is Earth going to respond now that it has the information that we do? There's a lot of carryover from characters from the first Formic War series, because there's only like a 5-year gap between the first and the second series. However, what am I going to say? There's some new characters and new situations that are introduced in the second series. I'm really liking the series. They read really fast. If you're looking for a good sci-fi read, I would recommend this series. I would recommend starting with the first Formic War series just so you know the characters in the background before starting the second Formic War series. That being said, I don't think you need to have read Ender's Game. I think the series can kind of stand by itself as a build-up to Ender's Game. I think maybe if you have read Ender's Game, you can see some of the connections or how things will move forward, but it's not necessary to read the series. So that was my third favorite book. These are not really books. 2 of these have been the series, and one of them I had 2 entries for, so I don't really know what I'm doing. The third one was kind of surprising for me, and that was Damnation Alley by Roger Zelazny. Damnation Alley is part of a challenge I am doing and then got stuck on for various reasons, but will be resuming shortly, which is to read all the Hugo Award winners and shortlists, per the Wikipedia article. That's as far as my research is going, for the Hugo Award for Best Novel and Best Novella. So Roger Zelazny's Damnation Alley is kind of sci-fi. It's set after a nuclear war has laid wasteland to the middle of the United States, and there is a person who is responsible for running a vaccine from California to Boston to stop a plague. This book was not the winner for the 1968 Hugo for Best Novella. It was on the shortlist, however. So the 2 winners that year were Riders of the Purple Wage by Philip Jose Farmer, which I hated. No clue how that book won, or that novella won. I thought it was horrible. No offense to everyone out there. The writing actually wasn't bad, so maybe that's why it won. The whole everything else that was going on in that book, did not enjoy. No clue what was going on. And the other winners, there were 2 winners in 1968, was Where's Search by Anne McCaffrey, I think it was. That one, if my understanding, or if my gut feeling, I didn't do a lot of research on this, is correct, is that it did a lot of maybe new or groundbreaking or was interesting in the 1960s, but I think a lot of the tropes or ideas that were utilized in that book have kind of become worn out in fantasy. So as a modern reader, it maybe doesn't have the staying power as it might have when it first gripped readers in the 1960s, because obviously it won a Hugo, so it must have done something to the readers of the time. That being said, I think her writing is interesting, and I would definitely read other series by her. So Roger Zelazny was not a winner, so I kind of didn't expect it to be as good, although maybe I shouldn't have expected that. Kind of comes down to personal preference as the other 2, the 2 winners for the year, but I thought it was way better. There are some things that maybe wouldn't be written in the 2000s, because I think we've kind of become more aware of certain things, which is fair. You have to understand, I guess, the time that you're reading a book in, if that makes sense. Like, you're reading a book from the 1960s. Maybe the depiction of women in fantasy or sci-fi isn't going to be as good as we would expect it now. That being said, I loved it. I thought it was great. I read it. It's short. Surprisingly, not a lot of libraries have it anymore. I had to order it from a very small library way out far away from where I live, and they had to ship it to my library to get it. And I was surprised because I thought it was a really, really good book. And I was actually having a conversation about this book a couple days ago. And I was talking about how I felt like it may have influenced a lot of stuff in the science fiction genre, which makes sense. Hugo Award winners, and the idea of starting at the beginning of the list, or the winners, the first winners, and moving forward, is to kind of see the evolution of the genres of science fiction and fantasy. And in one area in particular that I think this book could have influenced was Fallout. I can see the influence of Fallout in Damnation Alley for sure. And on a whim, I went on the Wikipedia page, and sure enough, it is listed as a vague influence on Fallout. I think maybe this book influenced other things, which then maybe more strongly influenced Fallout, but it is listed as an influence for the Fallout series video games. So I thought that was really, really interesting. The next book on my favorite nonfiction book, or nonfiction, favorite fiction books, is a short story collection, which I didn't actually expect to be as good as it was, and that is The OK End of Funnytown by Mark Polanzak. I'm struggling here. Mark Polanzak. This book was a short story collection. I picked it up expecting to read a story or two each day because they were like maybe 5 or 10 pages each, and I read all of it in one sitting, and it was incredibly gripping. I think this would be the perfect book for people who don't have a lot of time but really want really high quality writing and really interesting stories. I would highly recommend The OK End of Funnytown by Mark Polanzak. All the names and the authors will be in the description so you can find them, and in case I'm saying these names wrong, you will know exactly who I'm talking about. That one, it's hard to talk about because if I talk about any of the stories, I feel like I'm giving away some of the stories because of how short they are, but that was very, very good. I really highly recommend it, and I think if you're looking for some good high quality writing but don't have a lot of time to read maybe a whole novel, this is the perfect book for you. Again, with any short story collection, there's going to be some that you probably like more than others. At least I found that to be the case, but there's plenty in there that I enjoyed, so I think there's going to be plenty in there that you will enjoy as well. Finally, the last one, just a whimsical, wholesome read, was Cat's Cafe, a comic collection by Matt Tarpley. I think it was Tarpley. Matt Tarpley. So this was just a cute, wholesome, whimsical collection of fun, cute animals that oozed wholesomeness. Even though I'm an adult, I loved it. I thought it was super cute. Nothing serious, nothing deep or meaningful there, but I just really enjoyed it, and I thought it was worth a mention. Anyways, that wraps up my favorite fiction books from 2021, unless there is a late entry in the next 2 or 3 days. 2 days, there's only 2 days left of the year. What were your favorite books of the year? What did you like reading? Unfortunately, I wasn't able to show these books because I do most of my reading through the public library, so I do not have all the books with me. But if you have some favorite books, please share them with me. Please let me know. I'm always looking for reading suggestions, and I want to know what you thought of the books I read, books that you thought were good in 2021, or just the best read that you came away from 2021 with. Other than that, everyone, I will see you in the next video, which is my favorite nonfiction reads of 2021. All right, everyone, have a great day.